Welcome back to the SaaS Jobs Podcast. I'm your host, Will Steward. Today we're tackling a question that almost every SaaS founder faces sooner or later. How should we actually hire as we scale? Do you use agencies, build an in-house team, or adopt an embedded talent model? To explore this properly, I'm joined by Ross Summers. Ross is a founder and talent acquisition leader with over 15 years' experience helping tech companies scale through hiring. He's built and led embedded recruitment models, partnered closely with founders, and supported teams through high-growth phases, including IPOs and $100 million plus exits. Ross, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Will.
Yeah, so Ross, before we compare models, let's take a step back. Why does hiring model choice matter so much for scaling SaaS companies?
I think there's an interesting thing with recruitment and talent acquisition, and one of the things I will always say to everyone, and I will say this probably throughout the podcast, is think about talent acquisition the same as you think about customer acquisition. It's something where you really want to put some time and effort and dedication into, and then really mapping out, your ICP, the type of client that you're trying to get is the same as thinking about the type of talent you're trying to bring into the business. So with that, once you've got a really good, clear plan, then thinking about the model that you use will be dictated by your plan of your hiring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. From what you've seen, at what stage do founders usually start questioning whether their current approach is working or not?
I think there's a number of things that happen. One will be the amount they're spending on recruitment, either in time or cost. And the other will be how fast the business is actually growing. And what I mean by that is obviously headcount increase, but also retention. I think those are the times where people will really start to go, okay, is this actually working? Sometimes it could be the VC putting sort of certain pressures on or conversations around scaling, but those are normally the telltale signs that it'd be good to have a look at how your recruitment processes are working.
Do you think there are any sort of common points, so in terms of like number of hires, where things often start to break down? Or
yeah, generally I think up until about 20 headcount, a lot of businesses, particularly if you've got someone in the business who, whether it's a CEO or a sales leader who's very good at outreach, very good at networking, could be even a CTO who's got a great network, you'll generally bring in people that you know and trust in that first 20. Once you go past that, you've probably exhausted your network, and it then becomes more time consuming, and you're then also really having to think about the exact people that you need to bring in.
Yeah. Yes. So what would you say the early warning signs are that a company's hiring model is starting to break down a bit?
There's a number, but some of the early signs will be that you're losing candidates. So people are taking other offers. You're not getting people over the line. You're behind on headcount, and also retention rates start to drop. So you're losing talent out of the business at the same time. So I think you'll also get feedback from hiring managers that they're not getting the right amount of talent, the right type of talent, or spending too much time on recruitment. It can be a really big time drain on the business. So there's a number, but those would be the key warning signs for me every time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess let's move on to recruitment agencies. So traditional recruitment agencies. Mm-hmm. In your experience, where do they work well for SaaS companies?
I think you can find some brilliant traditional recruitment agencies, particularly if they've got a good background in SaaS. And if you're hiring maybe one role or a couple of roles, recruitment agencies, if they've got a good network, can be very fast to find someone for a specific role. But I'd say it's generally when it's lower volume of hiring, recruitment agencies can be useful.
Yeah.
All very niche roles, very specific niche roles.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess especially if they've got deep expertise in a particular vertical and a big network there or existing relationships.
Yes, yeah, exactly that.
Yep. Where would you say they tend to fall short as companies start scaling more aggressively?
I think it's partly a lot of it will be the model of how traditional recruitment works, which is once you're starting to sort of aggressively scale, you really need dedicated resource to recruitment. And a recruitment agency is an external recruitment partner. They'll be working with a number of clients and a number of businesses at the same time. And they have to work on lots of roles, particularly if you're working in the contingent basis where you're paying a percentage of salary based on success. The average stat for that is roughly recruiters fill 1 in 5 jobs that they're working on. So I think the global stat's 19.7% of roles get filled. So recruitment agencies have to work on a number of roles. So you haven't got a dedicated resource. They're working with that recruiter could be working with 10 or 15 different businesses. So you're just not going to get the dedication to scaling the business and making multiple hires.
Yeah, makes sense. What assumptions do founders often make about agencies that don't hold up in practice?
I think it can often be that there is a black book of candidates that are ready to go. And that is true to an extent, but great candidates don't stay on the market for very long. So that sort of black book is ever changing, like weekly, daily. And so I think there is definitely a really interesting conversation around niche and really knowing deep expertise and candidates that perhaps are very difficult to find. But there isn't always a black book. Often people are going out and headhunting and finding candidates for every single role.
Yeah. So how do incentives in traditional agency models influence hiring outcomes?
So I'm quite negative about hiring models with traditional agencies because they are negatively incentivized for the business. So the way that the model works is obviously generally a percentage of salary. So the recruiter is incentivized to drive the salary up as high as possible and also the percentage fee as high as possible, which neither of those work in favor of a SaaS leader and a business. So the models are incentivized to build the salary and the fee as high as possible and get a hire made as quickly as possible. So if you were working with the traditional recruitment model, I would always suggest doing a fixed fee so that the salary doesn't impact the fee. So agree it up front that we're going to charge £10,000 or whatever the number might be. And then I would also suggest that working with one recruiter is always the best option. A lot of assumptions are made that if you work with 5 recruiters, they'll all go off and that gives you 5 times the opportunity to find the right candidate, but it's actually completely the opposite. So if a recruiter knows there's 4 other people working on that, then they're going to put in a far less amount of time because the probability of filling that role is far lower. So I would always suggest go for a fixed fee. Ideally, actually work with one recruiter. And if you believe in that recruiter, I would always try and retain the recruiter as well, so that you you've got a commitment from them. They're going to fill the role.
Yeah, I guess all about aligning incentives on both sides, really.
Exactly that.
So at what point does agency-led hiring start to become a risk rather than an accelerator?
I think it is at that scale point. So if you're looking to make 1, maybe 2 hires a month, then you are needing consistent delivery from recruiters and across multiple different roles, which means you're going to need to have a real dedicated person or people that are working with your business. So that's where it becomes a risk, because you don't have that when you're working with a traditional recruitment agency.
Yeah. I guess that segues nicely into the next section on sort of in-house talent teams. So many founders assume the grown-up move is to build an in-house recruitment team. I guess, when does that actually make sense?
So I totally agree with you. And I think as early as you've got the time to do it as possible, you don't have to bring someone in full time. You can bring someone in on a fractional basis. Obviously, that's going to be a good cost saving, and something that I would sort of highly recommend. But realistically, once you get to somewhere between 20 and 50 headcount, but it's really about once you're hiring consistently. So if you are looking to hire maybe a person a month, then you really should start to think about that, because that's probably 10K, maybe 12K, dependent on the roles per role. So you're already looking at 100, 150K spend on recruitment if you're going to do it with recruiters, or you're looking at a heck of a lot of time from your team and yourself to make those hires. So I think that's a real point, an inflection point for me.
Yeah. What's the most common mistakes companies make when they first start building out in-house talent teams?
The biggest mistake is that they hire too junior. So they hire a recruiter that is quite junior. So the way I always suggest thinking about this is, if you are building a department in your business, so marketing, sales, engineering, whatever it might be in a SaaS business, you wouldn't hire a junior and hope that they grow into that role and build that role. I am biased, but I think that the internal recruitment function should be the strongest team in the business. Ultimately, if they are brilliant and they're bringing in brilliant people, the business will grow and succeed. So the biggest mistake is people that hire a junior recruiter as low as possible in terms of their salary, and then also don't load on the costs that go associated with that. So often that will mean a LinkedIn recruiter license, probably 10K for the year, some job slots with that, an applicant tracking system, all the tooling that needs to go along with this. And also thinking about the amount of recruitment that one person can do is another key challenge. So realistically, in a scaling SaaS business, most recruiters, good recruiters, probably deliver 2 to 3 really good quality hires a month. So taking those numbers into consideration to think, if it's more than that you need to do, then you're probably going to need to use agencies as well, or supplement in another format, i.e. bringing more recruiters in. So those are the things that I see more often than not.
Yeah, I guess that leads nicely into my next question, which is, how hard is it for small in-house teams to maintain hiring quality under pressure to deliver new hires?
It is difficult. Generally, in-house team, maybe 1 or 2 people, they're working on engineering hiring, account executives, marketing managers, finance managers. And so it's a broad array of roles that they're working on, and every hiring manager, their role is the most important. So the pressure is often quite high, and they have to deliver, because more often than not, the whole reason you built an internal recruitment team is to not use agencies. So it's actually really useful to invest in these recruiters as much as you possibly can, allow them opportunity to go to different networking events within recruitment, as many tools as they can possibly use, because the pressure builds and they don't have anywhere else to go, particularly, which I think is one of the most difficult roles, when they're a single recruiter in the business. There is a lot to do, and they are building a function in the department often, along with having to deliver critical hires for the business.
Yeah. I guess, what capabilities do you think a small in-house team often lacks at the early and mid-scale stages?
It's more often than not those 2 things I mentioned. So it's 1, having the breadth to be able to do lots of different roles. And then it's 2, being able to set up and build the processes that should be in place to do recruitment properly and scale a business properly. Doing all of that alongside each other whilst also hiring at pace, that's kind of what they often lack.
Yeah. So moving on to embedded talent models then. For anyone unfamiliar, how would you explain what an embedded talent model actually is?
So quite simply, it's where you bring in a external recruiter, and you, exactly as it sounds, embed them directly into your business and into your culture as an internal recruiter for your business. So they'd have an email, they would be on your Slack channels, they would essentially be your internal recruiter, but they would come with all of the tools, and also generally they'll be quite seasoned, and they would have been in SaaS businesses, in tech businesses before, but they've also got the backing of the rest of a consultancy in a business. So you don't need to think about setting KPIs, building the business, building the infrastructure for recruitment. And generally, it's either coming into a business that doesn't have an internal recruitment team, or a business that's at an inflection point where perhaps they've raised another load of investment and their internal recruitment team is too stretched or underperforming. Those generally are the sort of inflection points where embedded models come in.
Yeah, so how's it fundamentally different from using an agency or hiring in-house?
So the major difference with an agency is, as I say, these people are going to be dedicated to your business. They are going to be essentially an internal recruiter for your business. They're not working with lots of other businesses alongside that. And they're not commission-based around kind of filling roles and charging a percentage. So the general model for embedded models is that it's a monthly flat fee for the recruiter to be in your business. The way that it differs from in-house is it's very flexible. So you're generally looking at either 3, 6, or 12-month contracts, and you can scale up and down the amount of recruiters and the amount of time that you need the recruiters in your business. Our model differs slightly differently to that in that we have built more of a retention aligned model. So we have a small fee for the recruiter when they're in your business, and then a very small percentage fee over the next 2 years for you paying for each hire. So it's actually quite a different model to other embedded models.
What problems does the embedded model specifically solve for scaling SaaS companies?
Firstly, it's obviously talent acquisition and bringing in the right talent. But I think the other part is particularly the time for founders. We know that founders are going to be spending a lot of their time raising investment, closing clients, managing the team. So a big part is taking the time away from recruitment and feeling confident that you're going to hire great people.
Yeah, lots of hats to wear in a small SaaS company.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess going on to quality of hire and retention, how does embedding change outcomes in those areas?
And there's a number of facets in that when we embed into a business, we want the hires to work out, because if we have to refill them, there's no incentive. We're not getting any more fees for that. It's just more work for us. So it's quite a negative. And we really want to be driving long-term retention. And as I mentioned, kind of our model is that you've actually got a direct debit for those candidates over 2 years. So we really want those candidates to stay. If not, the direct debit stops. So it's very much in line with the business as opposed to a recruitment model.
Yeah. So how would you say embedding alters the relationship between the recruiter, founder, and hiring manager?
It's totally different. We've had some of our team who have been invited out to Mallorca for a week with the business that they're working with. I've not been able to do that, but I've been to Bristol a couple of times and plenty of trips into London. But the embedded recruiters actually sit within the business. So more often than not, our team are in 1, 2, 3 days a week, sometimes up to 5 days a week, sat in the office. So you're building closer relationships because you're part of the business and understand more around the culture of the business. And also because it's not a commission-based business model, the incentives are really aligned. We want to work with everyone to hire great people. Yeah,
so I guess going into comparing the models, if you compare embedded talent, agencies and in-house teams across speed, quality and retention, how does each stack up? That's quite a big question.
So there can be instances where traditional contingent recruitment can be the fastest route. And that's definitely true, where you go to a recruiter and it just so happens they've interviewed someone that week or they know someone that's absolutely perfect for that role. So there are times where agency models can be the fastest, but I would err on caution around quality because speed and size of salary are the driving forces for a recruitment agency in the traditional format. In-house and embedded are very similar when it comes to quality and speed. I think embedded is often a bit faster because you're bringing in not just one or two recruiters or three recruiters, but an entire business. So the systems and processes that we have are built by many different recruiters rather than sort of your own in-house team. But I think both in-house and embedded, the quality of hiring is often higher because you want the people to work out, because you want great people in the business, and you don't want to keep refilling roles. That's not what recruiters want to be doing in-house or in embedded.
Yeah. So what trade-offs should founders be aware of when choosing an embedded model?
The major trade-offs when you're looking at embedded model will be the actual recruiters that are coming in. So I would always advise interview the recruiters that are part of that embedded model, that are going to be part of your business, as you would anyone that you're hiring in the business. Really treat it the same as you would a hiring process. And then it will be really looking at the types of businesses that embedded model's worked with. Some have got really great deep tech experience, some have got crypto, some have got a broad variety of different businesses that they've worked with. So those are the trade-offs. And then kind of looking at the fee structure. Majority do a flat fee per month. So ours is slightly different, and we're bringing that to market at the moment. But those are the bits that you want to be considering.
Are there situations where embedded isn't the right choice?
I think if you're not sure on what you're looking for, and you're not sure actually even if you need to hire yet, then testing the water with a contingent recruitment agency where you're not paying anything up front, or you're not paying for that service unless you make the right hire and you're not ready maybe yet to hire, then I think that can be a good route to sort of test the market, and where our embedded model you would be paying for someone to be in your business. So if you're really not sure on whether you're making a hire yet, it's probably not the right route.
And we've touched on this a bit, but how should founders think about cost when comparing all the different models properly?
So there's a number of things. Firstly is the cost per hire. The other is really the cost in time. So what is it going to be how much time are you going to spend with a recruitment agency versus an embedded model versus building your own internal recruitment team? And I think that time part is something that is often neglected. The main thing people think about is the fee per hire, or the fee per month for the recruiter in the business, or the salary that you're going to spend on the recruiter if you hire yourself. But actually that big time bit is is something that should be considered.
Yeah, well, I guess especially building an in-house function, it's easy to sink a lot of time into it, and then, you've got to get the right person.
Particularly if you haven't done it before. If you've never built an internal recruitment function and it's your first time doing it, or even your second or third time, there's going to be a lot of learning and a lot of time going into working out which tools to buy, working out who to hire, working out the KPIs that you need, and then kind of actually scaling that.
Absolutely. So if a SaaS founder's currently using agencies, how do they know when it's time to change their approach?
I think twofold. One, that the fees are getting quite large, and the cost. I think that's probably the main one. The second is if the quality of candidates starts to drop.
And what does a healthy transition into embedded model look like in practice?
It should be seamless. So the transition really should be that you do need to invest some time. So senior leadership and the hiring managers need to spend time with the embedded model that's coming in, really dedicate resources to helping them understand how recruitment has been working so far, the challenges, the success, and what they want recruitment to look like in the future. So I think that's kind of the core to it. And when businesses don't, and they just think, right, we're going to bring this embedded model in, or we're going to bring in an internal recruiter, this will fix everything. That doesn't work. You need to actually invest some time into it.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of time, how long does it usually take for founders to see the benefits once a model is embedded?
So generally in the first month, you'll feel the impact of changes being made. That's not going to be the impact of hires. Generally, we might make a hire or two in the first month, but likelihood is that it's more the amount of time and things coming off off your plate. It's the second month where you really start to see the hires. And then the real impact, though, probably won't be for another, and this might sound quite far away, but 6 to 12 months, because I always think it's interesting that recruitment is often seen as very short term. Brilliant, we've made a hire, we've got these endorphins, brilliant, we've made this hire. But really the impact of a hire is not really seen for the next 6 to 12 months. So that's unfortunately really where you're going to see what was the impact of bringing in an embedded model or even any hire that you've made.
Yeah. Finally, what role does leadership buy-in play in making embedded talent work?
I think it's sort of similar to what I said earlier, it's absolutely vital. If you haven't got it, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So now I've just got a few sort of rapid fire questions for quick answers. What do you think the biggest misconception founders have about recruiters is?
They're all sharks and salespeople. Quite a few are, but not all.
Yeah, the biggest red flag in a scaling SaaS hiring process?
I think it's that candidates are dropping through the funnel very regularly, and that offers are being turned down.
One metric founders focus on too much when they're hiring?
Time to hire.
And one signal that tells your hiring model is working well?
Retention rates.
And one change founders can make this quarter to improve hiring outcomes?
Think about recruitment as you would do customer acquisition.
Yeah. Perfect. So Ross, this has been a really valuable conversation. I think a lot of founders default into hiring models without ever stepping back to ask whether they're actually fit for their scale. If people want to learn more about your work, embedded talent models, or connect with you directly, where should they go? So
you can find me on LinkedIn, which is Ross Summers, or have a look on our new website, which is ryzon.io. That's ryzon.io.
Perfect. And for anyone listening, if you're hiring in SaaS or looking for your next role, check out the SaaSjobs.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.